You know, when you look up at the night sky, it feels, well, mapped, doesn't it? Like it feels
Oh,
categorized.
totally. We know where everything is.
Right. We track the International Space Station down to the exact second it passes over your house. Space, for all its infinite size, it just feels known.
Yeah, we like to think we have a handle on it.
Exactly. But today's deep dive into these sources from Ziko's space stories, it actually points out this massive, absolute cosmic blind spot.
A really heavy one, too.
Literally. We're talking about a 15-ton pitch black object in Earth's orbit. And the theories trying to explain it, I mean, they could not be more violently opposed.
It is a phenomenal dichotomy. On one side, you have, like, the ultimate mundane reality of human spaceflight, just our own junk.
Yeah.
And on the other, you have this theory that essentially breaks the timeline of human history in half.
Right. So the question we're looking at today is, are we looking at the most famous piece of floating space trash ever photographed? Or is this object, as the independent researchers in our sources claim, anyway, is it a 13,000-year-old alien spy machine?
Silently tracking us since the Ice Age.
Which is wild. And just to set the dynamic right out of the gate, I am going to plant my flag firmly in the skeptic's corner today.
I figured you would.
I have to. I want to ground this in NASA's practical, verified data because, the simplest answer is usually the right one. And humans are notoriously good at leaving their garbage everywhere, including low Earth orbit.
That is very fair. But I'm actually going to take the opposing track today. I really want to look at the ancient alien theory from the sources, lay out the historical chronology, and just let's see what happens when we connect the data points.
Okay, play the devil's advocate.
Exactly, because when you map out the timeline of this object, a very specific, honestly kind of unnerving pattern starts to emerge.
Well, the timeline is exactly where this gets complicated, because to understand the climax of this mystery, which is a very real, highly debated photograph taken by a NASA space shuttle crew in 1998, we can't actually start in the 90s.
No, not at all.
The sources mandate that we rewind almost exactly a century. We have to go back to 1899.
Dawn of the 20th century.
Right, before anyone had even flown an airplane, let alone, launched a satellite.
So we are going to Nikola Tesla's experimental station in Colorado Springs.
Yes, and let's actually explain what Tesla was doing out there, because it wasn't just him sitting in a dark room twiddling a radio dial.
Oh, no, it was an absolute behemoth of early electrical engineering.
He was in the middle of nowhere, away from city interference, right?
Yeah, testing this massive piece of hardware called a magnifying transmitter. He built this huge, high-voltage wireless tower.
Just blasting the sky.
Pretty much. He was pushing millions of volts of electricity into the ground and the atmosphere, trying to study wireless power transmission, essentially creating artificial lightning, pushing the absolute boundaries of physics at the time.
Wow.
But in the process of blasting the atmosphere with all this energy, he was also listening to the resonance, like monitoring the electrical feedback of the environment.
And the data in Ziko's space stories, it highlights that during these experiments, his equipment picked up something that completely derailed his focus.
He intercepted a signal.
But, okay, I have to throw a massive red flag on the play here.
Okay, go for it.
It's 1899. The technology was basically spit and wire compared to today.
It was very primitive, yes.
So isn't assuming early radio static is an alien transmission a bit like hearing a weird thump in your car engine and assuming you've got a gremlin under the hood instead of just a loose fan belt?
I mean, that is the natural reaction. If you hear a random hum or a crackle, you assume it's terrestrial.
Right, like a storm or something.
Exactly. A thunderstorm moving across the plains or a sudden discharge of atmospheric static. But those natural events, they produce a very chaotic, messy signal. A lightning strike doesn't have syntax,
Okay, fair.
But the sources highlight a critical distinction about what Tesla actually recorded. The signals were structured.
But define structured, though, because, a repeating glitch in a machine could be called structured.
Think of it like a heartbeat versus a rock slide.
Oh.
A rock slide is just this random cacophony of noise. But what Tesla heard had a distinct mathematical cadence, like 1, 2, 3, pause, 1, 2, 3.
Really? That specific?
Yeah, it was a rhythmic sequence of electrical pulses that just did not correlate with any known natural phenomenon. It felt purposeful.
Interesting.
And based on his calculations of the signal's strength and frequency, Tesla deduced it wasn't just bouncing off a nearby mountain, it was coming from beyond the atmosphere.
Yeah, he went all in.
He was so convinced by the math of it that he publicly stated he believed he was hearing the greeting of another world.
I still struggle with jumping from weird mathematical static to, extraterrestrial intelligence. It's just a colossal leap of logic based on the interpretation of a guy who, brilliant as he was, definitely had a flair for the dramatic.
He was definitely a showman.
Yeah.
And if the story ended with Tesla in 1899, it would be very easy to just dismiss it as anomalous static.
Right.
But the independent researchers point out that the story doesn't end there. It just goes quiet until humanity develops the technology to actually listen properly.
Which brings us to the next jump in the timeline.
Fast forward to the 1920s. We aren't relying on one eccentric genius in a solitary lab anymore. Radio technology has proliferated.
You have a global network of amateur and professional radio operators.
Exactly. And these operators started picking up something the sources refer to as long-delayed echoes.
Which honestly sounds like a technical glitch, but the physics of it are actually pretty wild when you break it down.
They are fascinating, because to understand why a long-delayed echo is so strange, you have to remember how fast radio waves travel.
Speed of light, right?
Roughly 186,000 miles per second.
So basically instantaneous for anything happening on Earth. If you broadcast a signal, it bounces off the ionosphere and hits a receiver on the other side of the planet in a fraction of a second.
Exactly. But in the 1920s, these operators were sending out radio pulses and hearing the echo bounce back 3, 4, sometimes up to 15 seconds later.
Wait, okay, if it travels at 186,000 miles per second, a 3-second delay means that radio wave traveled, what, over 500,000 miles?
Yeah.
That's past the moon and back.
That is the exact mathematical problem they were staring at.
Yeah.
Because either these radio waves were traveling deep into the vacuum of space, hitting some massive invisible wall, and bouncing back perfectly intact.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Right. Or something much closer to Earth was intercepting the signal, holding onto it, and rebroadcasting it seconds later.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate again here.
Please do.
Could it just be a weird atmospheric trap? Like, ionospheric ducting, where the signal gets caught in a pocket of plasma and bounces around in the upper atmosphere for a few seconds before escaping back down to the receiver?
And scientists absolutely looked into plasma bubbles and ionospheric anomalies to explain it. That was a major theory.
Naturally.
But the independent researchers focus on what the operators did with that delay data. By tracking the exact timing of the delays, the frequency shifts they used, the Doppler effect.
Oh, so like listening to how the pitch of a siren changes as an ambulance drives by?
Exactly like that. Listening to how the pitch of the echo changed as the object moved, they were able to triangulate a location.
Wow.
They weren't just hearing a delay, they were mapping the source. And the math pointed to a physical object in a very specific, highly unusual polar orbit around the Earth.
See, but math on paper is one thing. It's so easy to dismiss a phantom echo on a ham radio as a calculation error or, a plasma bubble, like we said.
Sure.
But it is a completely different nightmare when that phantom suddenly shows up on military hardware. Which brings us right into 1954.
1954 is the linchpin of the Black Knight mystery.
If you are listening to this and wondering why 1954 is so important, just think about the technological timeline.
It's pre-Sputnik.
Exactly. 1954 is 3 full years before the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1. Humanity's orbital capability is currently sitting at 0.
Absolute zero.
We have some high-altitude planes, maybe some suborbital test rockets, but absolutely nobody on Earth has the rocket propulsion necessary to put a permanent satellite into orbit.
We are completely earthbound. Yet, according to Ziko's space stories, newspapers across the United States reported that the U.S. Air Force had detected massive, unidentified objects circling the globe.
And the military didn't just casually observe this out a window. They were relying on sophisticated early warning radar systems designed to detect incoming Soviet bombers.
Right, highly sensitive equipment.
So these systems are scanning the upper atmosphere, and suddenly they are getting massive radar returns. Blips indicating an object or maybe 2 objects that are huge. The sources describe estimates of a 15-ton object.
Just imagine being that radar operator.
Sweating bullets.
Seriously. You know your own military's capabilities. You know they can't put 15 tons into orbit. You assume your enemy can't either. And yet the radar return is undeniable.
It's on the screen.
It's not a glitch. It's a massive physical presence moving at orbital velocity.
I'm not buying the panic, though. I mean, it's 1954. People were seeing Soviet spies in their alphabet soup. The paranoia was astronomical.
The Red Scare was at its peak, yes.
Yeah. So doesn't it make infinitely more sense that this was just a classified high-altitude balloon project? Like the Skyhook balloons?
And a Navy project, yeah.
They were huge, they were metallic, and highly reflective. If one broke its tether and got swept up into the jet stream, it would look exactly like a massive, fast-moving radar blip.
And if you look at the raw speed and altitude, a balloon is a comfortable, logical explanation.
Right.
But this is where the independent researchers zero in on the specific data from those 1954 Air Force reports.
Right.
It wasn't just that they detected an object, and it wasn't even just how big it was the flight path.
The polar orbit they triangulated in the 20s?
Yes.
Hmm.
The radar confirmed the 1920s math. The object was in a polar orbit. And that completely dismantles the rogue balloon theory.
Walk me through that. Explain exactly how a flight path rules out a weather balloon.
Okay, think of the Earth like an apple on a spit turning over a fire.
Okay, I'm with you.
The natural rotation of the Earth is about 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. When we launch modern satellites, or like the International Space Station, we launch them in an equatorial orbit.
Around the middle of the apple.
Exactly. We launch them sideways, matching the spin of the Earth. You use the planet's momentum as a slingshot to help throw the rocket into space.
Right, it's the path of least resistance. It saves, what, millions of gallons of fuel?
Precisely. It is the easiest, most efficient way to get into orbit. But a polar orbit doesn't go around the middle. It goes top to bottom, North Pole to South Pole, perpendicular to the Earth's spin.
Like taking a vegetable peeler from the top of the apple to the bottom.
Perfect analogy, yes.
So you get zero help from the Earth's rotation.
Worse than zero help. You have to actively fight the rotational momentum. Achieving a polar orbit requires a staggering amount of kinetic energy and thrust.
Which a balloon doesn't have.
Exactly. It requires active, incredibly powerful steering.
Eh.
A balloon drifting in the jet stream does not accidentally achieve a perfect, mathematically precise polar orbit moving at 17,000 miles per hour.
Okay, yeah.
That requires intent. That requires advanced propulsion, which in 1954 just did not exist on this planet.
Wait, so you're telling me this thing was actively fighting the natural rotation of the Earth just to get a better vantage point?
Exactly, because why expend all that impossible energy to go pole to pole? Because a polar orbit is a surveillance orbit.
Oh, because the Earth spins underneath it.
Yes. As the object flies north to south, the Earth continues to rotate west to east underneath it. Over the course of a few days, an object in a polar orbit will pass over and scan every single square inch of the planet's surface.
Wow.
It is exactly the orbit a tactician would choose if they wanted to monitor, map, or spy on an entire globe.
So a rogue balloon doesn't accidentally do a perfect surveillance grid.
It does not. The researchers argue that if the 1954 radar data is accurate, whatever was up there was intelligently designed and deliberately placed.
Okay, the orbital mechanics argument is incredibly strong, I'll admit that. Fighting the Earth's rotation requires a level of engineering that makes the weather balloon theory look pretty weak.
It's hard to dispute the physics of it.
But at the end of the day, radar blips from 1954 and newspaper clippings are just data points, and they're shrouded in decades of military secrecy. To get actual, undeniable visual proof, we can't rely on echoes or radar screens.
No, we need a picture.
Right. We have to fast forward to when humanity finally got a camera close enough to look this thing in the eye.
Which brings us to 1998, the Space Shuttle Endeavor mission STS-88.
This is the visual climax of the whole Black Knight mystery. And let's set the stage for how chaotic this environment was. STS-88 wasn't just some joyride.
No, it was a massive construction job.
It was the first space shuttle mission to assemble the International Space Station. They were physically connecting the American Unity node to the Russian Zarya module.
Huge pieces of hardware.
Right, and it required multiple, highly complex spacewalks in zero gravity.
So you have astronauts outside the shuttle dealing with bulky suits, tether lines, and massive metal modules trying to bolt together a space station while moving at 17,500 miles per hour.
It's just incredibly dangerous work. And it's during one of these spacewalks that NASA cameras capture a series of high-resolution photographs of an object floating nearby.
Famous photos.
Yeah. If you were listening to this and you haven't seen the photo, the description in Ziko's space stories is incredibly vivid. It is a strange, pitch-black, deeply angular object. It's silhouetted against the bright blue and white backdrop of the Earth below.
It is a really striking, imposing image. Like, it does not look like a natural pockmarked asteroid.
Not at all.
And it doesn't look like a standard human satellite with shiny geometric solar panels either.
No, it looks like a piece of matte black alien armor. And immediately, the independent researchers look at this photo and say, there it is, the 13,000-year-old alien spy machine, the source of Tesla's signals, the cause of the 1920s echoes, the 15-ton radar blip from 1954. We finally caught it on camera.
They argue that the structure in the photo implies advanced design. The rigid, angular shape looks like engineered armor, built to withstand the harsh environment of space for millennia.
This is where I am deploying NASA's official explanation, and frankly, I think it's bulletproof.
Let's hear it.
NASA reviewed the footage and the photos and immediately identified it. It wasn't an alien ship, it was a thermal blanket, specifically a trunnion pin cover that got loose during the spacewalk.
A drop blanket.
Yes, think about the mechanics of the spacewalk. Astronauts Jerry Ross and Jim Newman were out there wrapping these thermal covers around the trunnion pins, which are the metal attachment points on the space station modules, to insulate them.
Right.
These covers are essentially heavy-duty insulated metallic blankets, and during the work, a tether failed. One of the covers slipped away. It's the astronaut equivalent of losing a hubcap on the highway. It just happens to be floating away in a frictionless vacuum.
A very expensive hubcap, but yes, that is the official record.
And it perfectly explains the weird shape. A lot of people look at the photo and say, well, a blanket wouldn't look like a rigid black spaceship.
Because we think of a blanket as soft and folding.
Exactly. But in zero gravity, without any air resistance to smooth it out or gravity to pull it flat, a stiff, insulated blanket is just going to hold whatever crumpled, weirdly angular shape it was in when it drifted away.
That's a really good point.
Add the harsh, direct sunlight of space baking the material and the deep shadows of the crumples making it look pitch black. I mean, it creates a perfect optical illusion of a solid craft. It's just pareidolia.
Pareidolia, yeah.
We want to see an alien ship, so our brains turn a piece of crumpled trash into one.
I will concede that if you look at the STS-88 photograph completely in isolation, the thermal blanket explanation is highly logical. It fits the immediate context of the mission perfectly.
I hear a but.
But the independent researchers don't look at the photo in a vacuum.
Yeah.
They apply the historical chronology we just walked through. They argue that you have to look at the entire data set.
How does history change the physical reality of a photo, though?
Because a dropped thermal blanket in 1998 cannot send mathematical rhythmic radio signals to Nikola Tesla in 1899.
Well, obviously not.
A thermal blanket drifting away from a space shuttle cannot intercept radio waves and bounce them back as long-delayed echoes in the 1920s. And a thermal blanket absolutely cannot trigger an early warning military radar system by flying a 15-ton surveillance grid in 1954.
Okay, I see where you're going.
So the researchers put a question. Are we really supposed to believe that humanity experienced a century of highly specific, technologically escalating anomalies, all pointing to an object in a polar orbit? And then, completely by coincidence, we accidentally dropped a piece of trash that perfectly resembles a dark, angular craft in that exact same environment.
It's a heck of a coincidence, I'll give you that.
They argue that the photograph isn't a coincidence at all. It is the visual confirmation of the object that has been haunting our skies for 100 years.
So it really all comes down to how much weight you give the historical pattern. If you isolate the photo, it's trash. If you connect the dots back to 1899, it's a 13,000-year-old observer.
It is a mystery that scales perfectly with human technological advancement.
How do you mean?
Well, when we only had primitive radio in 1899, we heard it. When we developed directional tracking in the 20s, we triangulated it. When we built military radar in 1954, we tracked its physical mass. And when we finally had high-definition cameras in orbit in 1998, we photographed it.
But you could argue the skeptical view scales exactly the same way.
How so?
When radio was brand new and poorly understood, Tesla misinterpreted weird static. When radar was new, military operators misinterpreted atmospheric glitches through the lens of Cold War panic. And when we finally got to orbit, we literally threw our trash out the window and then took a terrifying picture of it.
Oh, wow.
It's a perfect mirror image of interpretation.
Well, it truly is. The evidence flexes to support whichever worldview you bring to it.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. We've traced this anomaly from a solitary tower in Colorado Springs to a global radar panic, all the way to a space shuttle camera hovering over the Earth. If you're listening right now, which side of this massive cosmic debate do you actually land on?
Yeah, where do you sit?
Do you look at the evidence and see the Black Knight as exactly what NASA says? It is the most heavily analyzed, over-mythologized, lost thermal blanket in the history of space exploration?
Or do you lean toward the independent researchers? Do you look at the mathematical precision of the signals and the impossible physics of the polar orbit and believe this is a NASA cover-up,
A 15-ton, 13,000-year-old machine.
just silently sharing our orbit, watching us evolve from steam engines to space stations?
It is a phenomenal amount of data to turn over in your head. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final, deeply unsettling detail from Ziko space stories.
Oh, this part.
Yeah, it's a piece of the puzzle we haven't unpacked yet, but once you hear it, it completely changes the context of the mystery.
It really does. It's
Yeah.
about the actual purpose of the object, assuming the ancient alien hypothesis is correct.
Exactly. Because if the independent researchers are right, and that angular black mass in the photo is a highly advanced piece of extraterrestrial technology, it isn't just a passive camera. It isn't just sitting in a polar orbit, silently watching humanity like some, security camera on a light pole.
The sources suggest that the signals intercepted by Tesla and the 1920s operators weren't just internal mechanisms or static.
No.
The object may be actively broadcasting. It is taking all the data it gathers from scanning the globe, compiling it, and transmitting it deep into space, specifically toward a star system in the Epsilon Buddhist constellation.
Actively broadcasting. So the next time you step outside at night and you look up at that pristine, supposedly mapped out void of the night sky, ponder this.
Just think about it.
If that 15-ton pitch black object really is up there hiding in a polar orbit, and if it truly is recording and broadcasting, are every single move exactly who or what is on the receiving end of that transmission?
A chilling thought to leave on.
We'll leave you with that cosmic blind spot. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Keep your eyes on the skies.